Hey everybody, welcome back to PathMonk Presents. PathMonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in their buying journey separates you from the competition online. PathMonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding PathMonk to your website in seconds, letting the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increase conversions while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. And welcome back to another episode of PathMonk Presents. Hey, everybody, we're really looking forward to today's episodes because we've got Jaime López, Director of Marketing over at Ververica. How you doing today, Jaime?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kevin, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to talk about some marketing.
Really looking forward to chatting about it. We're really looking forward to talking about what you guys have been doing from a marketing initiative over there and what sort of, marketing ideas you have going on. But before we dive too deep, maybe you can give our audience a little bit of a background. Tell us a little bit about Ververica and what you guys are up to up there.
Absolutely. And it's a question that I get all the time because Ververica is a very well-kept secret in a way. You don't see us, but we are behind a lot of the brands that you trust and love every day. So, what do? We provide a software that is great at processing extremely large amounts of data extremely quickly in milliseconds. We say ourselves that we're building the nervous system for real-time AI,
Mhm.
and think that there are large companies out there like one of the big credit card processors, banks, insurance companies, entertainment companies that use us as part of that nervous system that allows them to make those decisions that are extremely important for them in milliseconds.
That's really interesting. And yeah, coming into this conversation, Ververica wasn't not necessarily something that I was 100% sure about, like what you guys were doing. I was looking at all the different solutions, and then I realized once I started seeing some of the names and brands that you guys work with, like, okay, yeah, you guys are really behind some of that big stuff. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Question number two. What sort of companies are you guys supporting or serving, and what are some of those main problems that you're solving for them?
Right. So I'll answer that the problem. Like, we don't really sell software. We sell time back. We sell time to detect fraud before it happens, time to detect a user's behavior pattern and personalize an e-commerce website before the customer clicks away, time to decide on a trading strategy before the market shifts. So in a way, we work with enterprises where real time isn't a nice to have. It's their existential kind of need. As I said, fintech, telecom, e-commerce platforms where a second of delay is really the difference between winning or losing.
Interesting. And so, because we're talking about milliseconds here, right? Maybe you can give us an example. Not having to say names or anything like that.
Mhm.
Is there a specific instance that has been really valuable that sticks out to you as something that Viverica solved because of the time you've been able to kind of save for one of your clients?
Yeah, something that's very tangible for an everyday listener is fraud detection on credit card payments, which many of our customers do. You know, when you go to a store and you tap your card to pay, in about 250 milliseconds round trip, the bank or the card issuer has to make a decision on whether to authorize that purchase you tapped, to ask for your PIN, or to deny it.
Mhm.
And think that 250 milliseconds is roughly as long as a human blink. So that's how long kind of they have to make that decision. And if they get it consistently wrong, that's going to show it in the bottom line.
That is It's something that I have a hard time processing in my own brain. When we talk about these decisions going from one location to another on the other side of the world and coming back to whatever that point of sale processing system is, right? And all of that happening in about a blink, that is
Hmm.
just it's just crazy. And you guys being kind of the tool in the background that makes this all possible and being able to make sure that the processing is correct and valid before any sort of, let's say, fraud happens, right? That's really, really impressive. Okay. Maybe we can talk a little bit more from a marketing standpoint about how you guys
Hmm.
are reaching your audience. So, how do your clients currently find out about you? Like, are there any sort of major or top acquisition channels?
Yeah, I would say that our top channel probably is dark social. So people discuss either on Slack channels, private kind of whatever, their Slack community, developer meetups, and we sell a lot to data engineers that are very tribal. When
Mm,
one of them solves a streaming problem with our technology, they will tell their network. And then
mm.
kind of the first instance where we actually see them is our website, obviously. But I believe that in B2B enterprise, your audience finds you before you find them. And that's what all of our website is kind of geared towards. So that when they come in, we know that they're more or less further along the path, and if we have to build awareness, and we are trying to address them at that point when they know the problem that this can solve, but they don't know it enough specifics about it.
And am I right in guessing that the main type of let's say person that you guys are marketing towards or trying to sell towards is more of like an engineer of sorts?
It's a bit of both, or it's both kind of a developer that is going to build and use
Mhm.
this sort of application at a bank, insurance company, trading company, hedge fund, but it's also the manager or the data product owner that's going to own and be accountable for the success of that
Mhm.
product. And that puts us in a pickle very often because our website can be too technical for a buyer and too commercial for the developer. And it's something that we're still kind of coming to terms with, like how to toe that line.
I've seen this before with some previous clients of my own where how do you quickly convert a client who the typical information that they are looking to consume on the product is such a highly educated level of information. They're not just looking for, blanket statements. Oh, we are the best at X, Y, and Z, or something like here's a case study on whatever happened, right? Typically, these high-level engineers and high-level developers are so well educated and they're looking for specific data points that prove, okay, this tool really knows what they're talking about, or they're clearly getting the results that they say they are. How do you guys balance that? How do you talk about the marketers versus the really detail-oriented
Yeah.
engineers and developers?
It's tricky, and I think it's the enterprise B2B curse. A
Good way to
way
put it.
of kind of coming out of this is to have kind of both available and let the users self-select kind of what path do they want to take.
Mhm.
That's kind of pretty obvious. There are companies that do it pretty well. Another way that we have thought about solving this problem is that we have also a PLG version of our software that is kind of very easy to start using. Is it gonna be the do all and all for large enterprise? No, but it's going to be a very quick and accessible proof of value
Mm.
where you can, when you know enough, you can just go sign up for it, get a 30-day free trial, and say like, it actually works. It actually would solve this problem. I'm gonna test it with a toy use case, but actually
Mhm.
solve a production use case.
That is really interesting. Yeah, I think, does this work? Here, try it yourself. Prove that it works. Run it in a real use case. And yeah, any sort of a free trial, especially in something like this. I mean, it's going to be important. Let's talk a little bit more about the website. So
Hmm.
obviously, it's a place where you're saying that you want your audience typically finds you first before you find them, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. But you have to make sure that when someone lands on the website, they are seeing what you want them to see in a way that makes them feel comfortable moving forward with some sort of a conversion
Yeah.
eventually, right? So, what are some of the major strengths and weaknesses of the website at the moment?
I would say a major strength is definitely the depth of technical content.
Hmm.
And for us, it has been clear that kind of it's non-negotiable. If somebody that is mature enough to consume the deep technical content goes to the website and doesn't find it, it's a lost sale, basically.
Mm, mm,
So we start building from there. Now that that exists, we are trying to build some scaffolding around it that shows that kind of proof of value, TCO calculators, that sort of stuff that would appeal to um, somebody on a different persona, on a more commercial persona. And maybe what we what differentiates us from some of our competitors is that we also carry a positive burden that Ververica are the original creators of Apache Flink, which is kind of the open source project that kind of gave birth to a number of companies. So often somebody comes to us looking to learn more about this open source project, and at
mm,
that point we have our website set up to educate a category, educate a future user that might
Mm,
need this in 2, 3, 4 years.
interesting. Really cool. Okay, so it sounds like making sure that the people that are visiting the website are finding the information that's specifically designed for them, whether it be
Hmm.
the person who is ultimately going to be using it, the person that might be managing it, or maybe even the person that might be taking this open source technology and using it to, create
Correct.
the foundation of something else they're going to do in the future.
Yeah, and that would be perfect for us. In the end, it's one more convert to the philosophy of real time. They might be our customers or become our customers later, but if not, anyways, like it is building critical mass for the shift that we kind of stand behind.
Really well said. So now that I've got a pretty good understanding about what Ververica is kind of doing from a marketing standpoint, I want to start talking a little bit more about Jaime as the marketing director, marketing professional. So kind of switch things over a little bit. And I want to get things started with a little bit of a segue, but staying on the website.
Hmm.
With your experience, what do you think makes a great converting website? Like, are there any sort of tools or tips, methods, maybe like a certain approach that you would recommend?
I still kind of keep one thing front and center when we develop our website, which is time to prove or time to value. Like, how quickly can I give a user that comes to the website the first time enough proof, and be it social proof in customer logos or reviews or metrics or case studies, um, how quickly can I give that to the user?
Hmm.
And the quicker I can give it to them, the higher the conversion rate and we're typically going to see, and the higher the dwell time on page is typically going to be. And nowadays we don't really have much time. Like it's about 5 to 8 seconds where like we will see whether that user builds a long journey or whether they drop off forever. So
Hmm.
focus on those first 5 seconds is my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, if you can build more of that top of funnel interest, it's just going to end up making a bigger difference down at the bottom of the funnel, right? And yeah, if you just
Yeah,
assume, oh, well, these people drop off after 5 to 8 seconds, and then we'll deal with the people that actually did stay and like try to get as much as we can out of those. Well, you're still losing a pretty decent
a
amount of that
big chunk.
first chunk, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think focusing and focusing to try to make that early 5 to 8% of or 5 to 8 second visitors to convert, or at least come back for a second visit and start to build that journey, right? You might
yeah.
not convert them immediately, but can you get them to stick around just a little bit longer? I think that pays off big dividends down at the bottom of the funnel.
Correct. I absolutely agree.
Awesome.
Because you go from the category of websites they'll never remember to the other bucket, which is websites they will kind of remember and at some point come back to. And
That's
it's
a
a
good.
massive shift.
I've never heard people kind of put it that way, and I like that visualization. And I would, yeah, making sure that you're in the bucket that people might remember, and then
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you nurture them, send them an email, send them a newsletter. Okay, now you're in the place that they do remember, and then maybe they come back. Yeah, so that's a really good way to think about it. I'm
Think
gonna
about
start
kind of
using
your
that.
day. How many tabs did you leave open and how many of them did you kind of never come back to? The vast majority of them. So you just try to be in the somewhat relevant ones.
That's a really good visualization tool. I'm definitely stealing that moving forward, just so you know. Okay, next question. Um, being the director of marketing over there, but also being a trained engineer, I know you're probably doing a million different things over there. So maybe you can tell us, like, what does a typical day-to-day look like? Like, where are you putting your time and focus throughout the day?
So typically my mornings go to signals. So consuming data, looking at what's working, what isn't, how are my website metrics, my lead conversion metrics going, and then building a plan for which of these am I going to action today and how
Mhm.
am I going to action. Normally I look at, I don't know, a bajillion dashboards, but there's typically 2 to 3 things that is like, okay, I actually think we could make a difference in, I don't know, average number of pages per session in the blog. All right, then I'm gonna take it to my afternoon when I'm gonna go to my systems and see like which levers can I pull to increase this dwell time page? Can I build a better recommendation engine? Can I retarget somebody with a new blog post? So it's going to typically go from looking at patterns and data early in the day to kind of building the systems that are going to action those data points
Mhm.
later in the day. And then, as every team lead, there's a whole team component of looking after my people and my team and making sure that they're set up for success in what we ask them to do.
Of course. And I would imagine a lot of that early stuff you're doing earlier in the morning, the data review, how much of that is, A/B testing or even A, B, C, D, E, F testing, right? Like what did work, what didn't work, but based on what we learned last week, and then we tried a different approach, is that doing any better than it was last week? Like how much of the time is kind of not just reviewing the data, but then making little tweaks and changes to the data that you're finding?
Um, an amount of that, but being very honest, it's not the largest share. I'd love to have super extensive experimentation operations. For example, Booking.com is known for having thousands of experiments live at the same time. We don't. We're a much smaller player in that sense, and we might have two or three. And in order to get enough data, normally I'm going to have these experiments running for a week or two before I can make a decision. Did this creative work? Did this tagline work? Did this recommender page work? So less time that I would like to spend, but still some.
So good way to put it. I think everyone's always curious about how much time is spent throughout the A/B testing period, but you're right, not everyone has that amount of availability. You've got a lot of other stuff to do, so testing sometimes falls a little bit lower on the priority list. Okay, next question. We know nowadays, 2025, almost 2026, there are so many different places out there to kind of consume content because we're always trying to improve upon ourselves and learn and grow and become a better marketing director. Where are the places that you are going to kind of consume this content or kind of find the information that you're looking to be a part of in these communities or these newsletters or these LinkedIn posts? What are the places that where are the places that you're going to kind of find
Yeah.
this information?
So I consume a healthy diet of LinkedIn or an unhealthy diet of LinkedIn. I gotta admit that, but I tend to follow thinkers more so than to follow kind of topics or themes. There are a few people who are extremely good and have consistent content volume on their path. For example, April Dunford for positioning, Tom Goodwin with a contrarian view on the rise of AI. And then I do a lot of studying things outside the marketing field, be it kind of learning how to build a RAG algorithm that I can kind of build from scratch or how to implement this other thing. And it's in the crossing or intersection between those two things, something extremely related to my job and something vaguely related to my job, that I tend to find what I kind of what interests me and those kind of gems of knowledge that are actually developing me as a person.
It's interesting to hear because you almost give me this idea, almost this realization that when you find there, it's oftentimes when you're not looking for something that you might
100%.
find what that is, and a light bulb goes off, and then you apply it to something else, right? So you might
Yeah.
be looking over to your left, but it totally applies to something over on your right.
It's definitely the shower thought, kind of that comes together when you're least expecting it. Yeah.
Yeah, good way to put it. Okay, so we're running towards the end of this conversation, and I want to run into our final section of the call,
Hmm.
where we're going to have kind of like some more playful, thought-provoking questions. And it'll be a little less business focused, but still kind of focused around your responsibilities. So, question number one, a pretty easy one. What's the last book that you read?
So I tend to have always a fiction and a non-fiction one at the same time. Last non-fiction that I've read is Malcolm Gladwell's latest book. Is it The Revenge of Tipping Point? Pretty good, recommended.
Mhm.
And latest fiction is by Nathan Hill called Wellness. Very nice novel.
I'll have to add both to the list. Thank you for the recommendations. Okay, next. If there were no boundaries in technology, and I mean anything is possible, snap your fingers, it's magically done for you. What would be the one thing that you would want to have fixed for your role as a marketer?
Give me auto magical attribution throughout the funnel from like subconscious to deal signed, please. That would be like
Even
my dream.
the unattributable data,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, bring it all into one place so that you can see the real journey. And
exactly.
oh, that, yeah, but I don't
And
know.
tell me, like, of the 42,000 touch points, like, how did they come to happen? In what order? Where were they? What made them happen? That would be my dream.
What friend mentioned something to them at a bar, something like this, right?
Yeah,
If you could bring that all together, it would be amazing. Maybe one day there will be microchips in our heads and we'll be able to do that or something like that.
why not?
Maybe not too far down the line. Okay, next one. If there was one repetitive task that you could automate out of what I'm sure is quite a few of them, what would that one thing be?
It would probably be content repurposing. And I
Can you
think
explain
there,
a little more?
sure. So in B2B tech, it's very common that you start from like a content pillar or content brick, which is a very heavy, deep asset written by subject matter experts like solution engineers about one big problem.
Mhm.
And from there, you derive five, six, seven smaller, kind of shorter pieces of content, like whatever. If you're solving fraud detection and you're going to see fraud detection for payments, fraud detection for e-commerce, fraud detection for live betting, and from each of those, you still have to distill one pagers, ads, social media content, presentation decks for salespeople, etc., etc. So from the one big push of content, you're going to end up with 100 assets in different formats. And that takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to do well. If we could automate that, it would be amazing.
Oh, yeah, and not to mention something I've kind of heard related to the same question with other guests on the show. Each one of these additional pieces of content that you're kind of creating out of these topics, right? Depending on the let's say the avenue or the channel that you're posting them to, it might be a very similar message or even the same message, but tweaked slightly depending on the audience, right? So if you're posting it on LinkedIn versus if you're posting it on, I don't know, let's say somewhere else, it might be a very slight, subtle
Hmm.
change in the messaging. And those types of things can be so time consuming, right? You're looking at the same
Yeah.
information over and over and over, but with slight variance and slight differences.
And then you have to track each one of those variations, which is a nightmare. So,
Yeah. What's better, to make changes for each channel and see how they do, or post the same thing to each channel and see what the data tells you? Like it's kind of a two ways of thinking about the same issue, right?
yeah, it is.
Because
There are some
if you
interesting
change it
ways.
ahead of
Yeah.
time, it's a different message, right? And you can't necessarily say it's the same result. Oh man, we're going down a rabbit hole. Okay, the last question before we wrap things up. If there was one piece of advice that you could give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer,
Hmm.
what would it be?
Um, Spend more time getting deep into technical skills in marketing and don't be afraid to kind of use those and foster those in your team. As a marketer, I've always found a slightly unfair edge in that I am comfortable with very technical things, but I see that that is still kind of maybe not enough, and it's also a big disadvantage for a lot of people who you have around in a marketing team. So being able to raise overall the kind of technical competence of the team would be a massive boon, I think, not just for me as a team lead, but for everybody.
I think that's a really, really good answer, and I think everyone can take that to heart. So, Jaime, thank you so much for joining us today. We really
My pleasure,
appreciated
Kevin.
having you on the show. It was awesome. But before we get going, maybe you can tell everyone what is Ververica and where can they find you?
Sure. So Ververica, original creators of Apache Flink, we're a German software company. We have our offices in three places in Germany. You can find us on ververica.com or on social media as Ververica, particularly on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you for the time, Jaime.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.